Hi everyone! During discussion yesterday, we went through assignment 2 part B on syntax, and we only had time to go through questions 1 through 5 and number 8. So I wanted to record myself doing questions 6 and 7 for your reference. In this video, we're going to answer question number 6. So question 6 gives you different sentences with words in bold and asks you to state the word class of the bolded words using both morphological or syntactic evidence. And the idea here is that words from the same categories tend to behave similarly in terms of both morphology and syntax. And we can use this evidence to guess what the category of the words are. A classic way to illustrate this idea is with the Jabberwocky poem. So the Jabberwocky poem is in English, you could say, but many of the words are nonsense words. They're made up. So let's take a look at the first line. "'Twas brillig and the slithy toves." If you look at the slithy toves, even though you've never heard of the word slithy or toves before, you can probably guess that slithy is an adjective and that toves is a noun. And there are both morphological and syntactic reasons for this. In terms of morphology, we're interested in which affixes are following or preceding the words. Let's take another example from English, from actual English words. So we can say the rainy days. Notice that in this example on the right, after the determiner the, we have the adjective and then the noun. The adjective rainy is followed by the suffix e, and many adjectives in English pattern the same way. The noun days has the suffix s, and that's also quite common in English to do. So we can kind of use what we know from actual English words to guess that slithy is an adjective because it has the suffix e, and that toves is a noun because it has the suffix s. Syntactically, that has to do with the word order. And we can see in the example on the right, after the determiner comes the adjective first and then the noun. We wouldn't be able to say the day is rainy. We can't have the noun come before the adjective. So that's further syntactic evidence that slithy is an adjective and that toves is a noun. So that's kind of the idea with these problems. So in question 6, let's start with the first 6 sentences, A through F. And notice that they're in pairs. So A and B kind of go together. So both have drives as the bolded word, but they're going to be from different categories. So A says, "My nephew often drives to Berkeley." B is, "They are planning to make the journey in 2 long drives." So both end in the suffix s. That's morphological evidence. And morphologically, we often add s to either nouns or verbs. So for nouns, we can add s to make something singular into something plural. So think about cloud versus clouds. For verbs, we can add the suffix s to change who the subject was. So I eat or he eats. We can add s to indicate that it was he, not I, who ate. So the suffix s at the end of drive in A and B is compatible with both nouns and verbs. But now notice the syntactic evidence, the word order. In sentence A, drives follows the adverb often. We generally can only follow adverbs like often with verbs. So we can say, "My nephew often eats chicken," where eats follows often. We can't follow adverbs like often with nouns. We can't say, "My nephew often chicken." So in A, the word order indicates, so the fact that it follows the adverb often, that's the main piece of evidence that in A, drives has to be a verb. Looking at sentence B, the drives in that sentence is following the adjective long. And as we saw before, nouns normally follow adjectives. We can't really follow an adjective with a verb. So that's the syntactic evidence in B, that drives in that sense is a noun. Let's move on to letters C and D. So here we have greener versus green. So C is the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. D is he walked onto the green. So in C, the suffix often is associated with adjectives. So we can say a greener leaf, where greener is describing the noun leaf. So that's kind of morphological evidence. And in D, there's a lack of the suffix er. And that's kind of common for nouns. We don't really follow nouns with er. There's also further syntactic evidence that C is an adjective and that D is a noun. In C, greener follows, this is called the copula, is whenever we have the verb to be, that's called the copula. We often follow the copula with an adjective. So we can say the grass is greener. The grass is always greener. We can't really follow is or is always with a noun. We wouldn't say the grass is always pillow or the grass is pillow. That wouldn't really make sense. So it follows the copula is in C, suggesting that greener is an adjective. In sentence D, syntactically, we can see that the word green is following the determiner the. And if there are no adjectives, then typically, if there's only one word after the determiner the, it has to be a noun. We can't just end with an adjective. So we can't say, he walked onto the greener, or he walked onto the pillowy, something like that. So in sentence D, it's the only word that follows the determiner the. And let me just zoom out to make it easier to see. So that's evidence that green is a noun. Let's look at E and F. Usually she is home by 7. F is the usual routine. So similar to C and D, we kind of see this difference where E has this extra suffix li and F doesn't have that extra suffix. So we typically, in English, add the suffix li for adverbs. So slowly, quickly. So the suffix, that's morphological evidence. What affixes we're adding or not adding. So this is already kind of telling us that an E usually is an adverb and F is probably maybe an adjective, or at least not an adverb. Next, syntactic evidence, the word order. In E, the fact that it's coming before the subject she, that is often, a temporal adverb. So we can say sometimes she is home by 7, that kind of thing. So comes before the subject. It's an adverb, and specifically it's like a temporal adverb. So it has to do with something with time. F, we can see that usual comes before the noun routine and after the determiner the. So it comes after the determiner the and before the noun routine. And we saw before that was evidence for being an adjective. So that's the answers for E and F.